Okay, we're back in the Black Hawk mod here. Go ahead and get cranked up, and the primary reason for this video is I've had a few people in the comments trying to figure out how I'm flying the new mod so smoothly, because they said that it tends to be twitchy, so we'll get cranked up here and I'll kind of go through everything as I'm starting up. So first and foremost, I've always said this about helicopters and DCS. If you're not flying in VR and you're flying in pancake mode, I don't care what helicopter it is. I personally, as my opinion, it's going to be a lot more difficult flying with the monitor. I know there's people out there that do it just fine, but personally, the depth perception, your ability to tell where you're at in relation to where you're landing, just your spatial awareness, situational awareness is obviously a lot better in VR. So I'm always going to rave about that. I think that 100% gives anybody flying in VR an edge when flying helos and DCS. So that's one reason I fly this helicopter so well. I mean, you can almost feel, anticipate the helicopter's movements while you're flying, which kind of dictates how much force you're applying to the stick, the collective, the rudder pedals, etc. So, see, we're cranked up here. This is another thing. I don't know if the people in the comments have been doing this, or if they're familiar with it. I'm just making a gross assumption they are, but one thing you need to make sure is that all your trim and SAS is turned on down here. That for me is obviously a must, just based on how you're supposed to fly the helicopter. So we're not going to do anything crazy here. We'll get the APU shut down. The first thing I'll talk about right before I lift off here is I fly with a Thrustmaster HOTAS, the old school A10 stick. I have a Virpil F15 EX, I believe, throttle system. And then I also have I think it's Virpil, I'm sorry, back up. Windwing F15 EX throttle and a Virpil Apache collective. And then I've got some older Thrustmaster rudder pedals. I'll start by saying that yes, I've got an expensive setup. I've got the Boeing chair. That's because I have two primary hobbies, the gym and the home gym, all the equipment at the gym, and then DCS. So as a guy in his mid-40s, married, this is my primary hobby outside of work and working out, spending time with my wife. So I tend to dump a little more money into this than maybe the average person can afford. But to me, it's worth it, and I definitely feel like after owning a collective, whether it's the Apache or Huey or whichever one you decide to get, if you decide to get one, it has absolutely made a difference to me when flying a DCS. So the big thing, learning how to fly this thing smoothly. We'll kind of roll into that. So that's kind of my setup that I fly with. So everything feels natural. I've done a video, you can check it out in my videos on what my setup actually looks like. But the collective is very natural. It's down by my left side. I modified the Boeing chair to accommodate the collective and the throttle. So what we're going to do here is, I don't know if it's accurate to the real aircraft, but in this mod you have force trim. So what I've found best is when we go into, so make sure, flash my jaws here, we're good to go. I'm going to start giving it just a little collective, and she's going to start kind of rolling forward, coming light off the gear. And as we start to roll forward, we're just going to go straight into a hover. Now, I'm not applying any stick right now. This is just collective. Now, as I start to gain a little bit of altitude, I'm going to nose over, and it's right here where you can see this bouncing, this teetering that I think a lot of people are talking about. What I do is I find the sweet spot, nosing over as I apply collective, and right here, I'm going to give that force trim, and I'm letting off the rudder pedals, and I've trimmed out my stick. So I may do is we get a little more speed, like right here. I'm going to trim one more time, and now right here, I'm just using the collective to adjust altitude. I'm not touching the stick. Now, in a bank, again, I've said this in some of my other videos, and pilots can correct me if I'm wrong. This is just what works for a guy who plays DCS. I've heard a lot of people say that they don't use the rudder pedals a lot in the Blackhawk. So I found that flying the mod, too much rudder doesn't help out. I've heard that this thing flies itself, which is why you got the SAS and all the auto trim on. So I've heard more from a buddy of mine that's a Blackhawk pilot that this thing almost flies like a plane more than it does a helicopter when it comes to bank. I kind of feel that way at DCS. So hopefully this clarifies a little bit of how I'm. And I'm not beating my chest here. I'm just going based off the comments. People saying how they don't understand how I'm flying this thing so smooth because the new version 2.0 is so twitchy. I think it's a combination of my seat, the way I sit, having the stick in its natural position between the legs, having a collective. But more so, you don't necessarily need that. It's learning how to manage the trim. When you get enough airspeed, I've found in this, like if you look at my speed right now, you know, between 100 and 120 knots, I found is the sweet spot. Now, that's not to say if I make any rash movements on this stick, it's going to jerk. Last video I put out, and we'll see when I circle back around to the airfield here, you got to give yourself a little bit of space when bleeding off energy and speed, and you're going to come in and land. If you watched that last video I put out, my air-to-air refueling when I was coming in, I didn't give myself enough space, and I had the collective dropped all the way to the floor, and I was having to pull back significantly on the stick to kill my speed, and you saw that jerk movement that some people are talking about. So I'm not immune to it. It's just getting used to feeling the helicopter while you're flying it. It's not meant to fly like the Cayuse or the Kiowa. You know, it's not. I don't think, or at least I don't think it's supposed to be a little nimble aircraft, right? So, just some pointers from a dude who's been flying the mod for a while and then testing out the new one. Again, it's minute corrections in the force trim. Now, one thing I almost forgot I left out here. So when I'm coming in to land in any of the DCS helicopters, any of them that use force trim, to include the Apache or the Chinook or whatever, right now I'm going to go ahead and release the trim. So I'm going to release it, and she's going to want to bounce nose up. So as soon as I'm releasing that, I'm pushing over on the stick a little bit and giving her a little bit of nose down. And as I'm doing that, I'm adjusting the collective. Of course, I forgot where the airport is, but I lost the damn airport. So anyways, I'm killing the force trim as soon as I'm looking to land, because I've noticed you tend to have a harder time fighting the aircraft when you're trying to land with force trim. The only trim that I typically leave on when flying helos and DCS is going to be the Huey. I have found that it can become a little easier to land the Huey if you're trimmed out correctly. And I think I picked up the airport here, so we'll go ahead and come in for a landing. Hopefully I don't make an ass out of myself. I do have my feet on the rudder pedals when I'm coming in for a landing, because I do utilize those when landing and taking off, but in flight I have a tendency to stay off of them. So right now I'm neutral on the stick, I'm dropping the collective, and now to bleed energy, bleed speed, I'm dropping the collective and pulling back on the stick. We're just going to bring it back into where we took off. And these are just small incremental movements on the collective and the stick. I'm not applying any rudder pedal here. And you can feel it in VR when you're starting to drop. You'll know when you need to yank the collective. Not yank, but give a little more. And right here, I'm going to give just a little bit of rudder pedal. Obviously you can't see how quickly I'm pulling up on the collective here, but so right now I'm giving it rudder pedal. The trim isn't going to work right here. I don't know if that's accurate. I don't know if I should release the force trim or the trim over here where the SAS is, but right here, just gonna figure out where I want to set it down. So I'm gonna start easing in, and in VR, you can actually feel that tail right there hit before your main gears do. Drop the collective. So this, I don't know if this is a me thing or a mod thing, but when using the rudder pedals, you'll saw that yank to the left a little bit. That may have something to do with me using the rudder pedals and having one of the auto functions on over here. I don't know. I need to work through that. But that's how I fly this thing. You know, in forward flight and air-to-air refueling, I feel like it's smooth as hell. I would say just don't overcompensate. Don't make rash movements on the stick, and don't fly it like you would some of the other helicopters in DCS. Definitely not like fighter aircraft, and just get a feel for it. And then I've always emphasized a ton. If you can afford it, and you're an avid DCS player or flight sim player at all, that there is no better experience than in VR, and it will absolutely guarantee you improve your ability to fly helicopters in DCS if you have a VR headset. Not to even capitalize on the experience you get out of doing this, but hopefully this helps those people in the comments who keep asking me how I'm flying this thing so smooth. And also one more thing, I did not make this mod. I don't know how the hell I came across sounding like maybe I developed this thing. I am not the mod developer. I don't do any of that shit. I'm just enjoying this thing that the devs made, and really just promoting their solid work and how much I appreciate it. So for those of you, if somehow I conveyed that I made this thing, I did not. So hopefully this video helps some of you understand how I'm flying it a little smooth. Hopefully my, whatever I'm doing helps you out. And then I definitely encourage any feedback if somebody's doing it different and saw anything wrong with what I'm doing. I'm definitely open to suggestions on how to improve anything I'm doing. So yeah, hopefully this helped y'all out.